Okay, I figured out my key to success. Now I'm locked in. I learned how to open doors like a locksmith.
Welcome back. You're not locked in with DK and Atwood. I'm Atwood. Killer to my left, DK. Killer to the far left. Man of many microphones, we'll say. Certainly no stranger to podcasts. One of the first MMA podcasts back in the day, right, called The Ultimate Podcast. Also ran one of the first MMA magazines and the #1 MMA magazine in the world back in its time, called Fighters Only. Put some pictures of some of the magazines he had brought up on the screen for you. And he's also a singer and songwriter. And was just promoted to black belt by his longtime coach, Ricardo Cavalcante, or Cavalcanti, however you want to say it. 6th degree black belt under Carlson Gracie, Gary Alexander.
Thank you. Thank you.
First of all, congratulations on the black belt.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
How long in jiu-jitsu?
Well, I trained 9 years, took about an 9-year hiatus, 8 years, I think. And then I've been back for a year and a half, 2 years off and on, and finally made a commitment, to myself and to Ricardo and to Derek, for that matter, to be here, at least as much as I can, but at least 3 days a week, 3 sessions a week. I had to make that commitment to myself and follow through with it and keep myself accountable.
Right. I remember when you were giving your speech last Saturday. For context, Ricardo came here, did a seminar, and then while he was here, he promoted you to black belt. And you gave a speech, and you were talking about how jiu-jitsu has saved your life, right? Mm-hmm. I want you to expand upon that, obviously, like, to your comfort level or whatever. But I think it's important because, like, we're on here all the time, and, Derek more so than me just because he knows more about it. But, like, basically preaching about how not just jiu-jitsu, but martial arts is a lifestyle, right? And he's mentioned in many ways before about how he feels like martial arts is essentially, like, in ways has saved his life. Yeah. So I think that's a cool story, and I always think that's a great story to tell for anybody who has that kind of story, for somebody that might be watching.
And it's not just a cop-out term either. It's it saved my life. Like, okay, well, for some people it's a different type of save,
Exactly.
Like, so some people are on the path to nowhere, and it brought you and it gave you a purpose, and it gave you something to look forward to, and you're like, oh man, like, I can actually do this, like, I can be good at this or somewhat. Mm-hmm. So what just go ahead. And
I think for me, so whenever I found jiu-jitsu, I wasn't necessarily in such a bad place. It wasn't like that, but I was training and traveling. I mean, I was working at that point in Vegas. I had retired from the entertainment business and was working in MMA in media. And how
old were you at the time?
Maybe 30, 31.
So you had when did you move to Vegas?
2002. Yeah, and I worked the first 4 years, 5 or 6 years. I was there in entertainment. And in different ways. I mean, dude, I did like all kinds of wacky stuff. Dude, I worked at a wedding chapel the first 4 years I was there, and that was that built me a house,
Elvis.
bro.
Really? It was Elvis, bro.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I did Elvis. I did tons of characters. Dang. I was basically hired as an actor at this wedding chapel. Dude, I did over 5,000 weddings in 4.5 years.
You said it built you a house.
Oh, absolutely.
Damn.
Yeah. Elvis ain't no joke in Vegas, too.
Dude, I just got back, man. I just got married in Vegas too. Yeah. So,
by the way, I wanted to mention that too. Congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations.
Thank you,
by the way, tying this in, one of your favorite photos has to be the one with the pink caddy.
Oh, 100,000%, bro. That is one of my favorite. The pink caddy we got. Anyways, man, but so Elvis is a big deal out there, man.
Oh, for sure, and so is mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu, for that matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely the mecca of the United States.
And ironically, I came into it all through boxing. While I was at the wedding chapel, I wasn't I'd come off a cruise ship and doing shows like big production shows on the Strip and stuff like that. But I was working at a wedding shop, and I was standing there singing and talking. I wasn't really doing a whole lot of activity, you know what I mean? So I started boxing at this boxing gym called Barry's Boxing. And from that, I mean, dude, I was learning to throw a jab in the mirror. I remember like looking in the mirror, just learning to throw a jab. And I've got like Hassan Rockman beside me smashing a heavy bag, like Shane Mosley, like all these. I'm the only non-pro in there, And Don House walked by me one day. He was a cut man for the UFC. He's a trainer, a coach is what his preference is, to be called a coach. And he said, he was like, "What are you doing?" I was wrapping my hands, and he goes, I said, "I'm just wrapping my hands." He goes, "No, you're wrapping a tourniquet. You're not bleeding to death." So he showed me how to wrap my hands the way he wraps hands, and that was great because I explained to him I'm a guitar player, I'm a singer, and he was like, "Well, you don't want to mess up your hands, so let me show you how to really do that." And that was really early on. We became really good friends, and after when he went to start his own gym, I went with him. And we went to, I think it was like Sand Hill and Tropicana at the time, in a Gold's Gym. We were in the back. And Ricardo Cavalcanti and One Kick Nick, I don't know if you know One Kick Nick.
I've heard of One Kick Nick, yeah.
So they came in and started their Muay Thai program and Jiu-Jitsu program out of our gym.
So this is before One Kicks.
Before his I think before his big gyms open, yeah.
And One Kick Nick, he had a gym. It's called One Kicks. Man, he had
Steve Cantwell.
Steve Cantwell. That dude was the WC champ for a little bit, and then he just disappeared. Man.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
I think he owns a dispensary now. I think he's making probably more money in Vegas.
Yeah. Dude, I went to one that was like 24 hours.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's a different business out there now, for sure, where than what it used to be. Right. But they came in, started doing their program there, and then I just kind of paying attention a little bit. And ironically, I didn't like MMA so much then. And House had talked me into going to a show. I talked to Kenny Florian about this recently, reminded him, because he and I have been friends for a long time, but through the magazine and my podcast. And I said, my first event was Ultimate Fight Night 2 at the Cox Pavilion. And the main event was Ivan Saliveri and Nate Marquardt.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and the undercard was all of the first season, bro.
Yeah.
It was just stacked. And Kenny fought on that card. And by the way, I was in the business from Kenny's first fight all the way to his retirement announcement. So I've always just had a thing for my guy. He's just a great,
he's great
people, right?
Great human being. Man.
So I wasn't into it. House talked me into going, fell in love with it, and then started this podcast, but still wasn't training, just boxing. And then once I started to get closer with Ricardo, because he has such an infectious kind of personality, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That I was like, man, he talked me into it. Yeah. And I trained off and on when I could because of my travels. And then I think I was blue belt at the time. We were at Warrior Training Center. And I was getting a divorce. And that was super heavy for me. I think we moved gyms. I was working at the time for Fighters Only magazine, and it just got heavy, man, really heavy. I didn't tell anybody about it. I'd had suicidal thoughts, and when I say thoughts, I don't mean like what most people will be like, where they're just, I should just kill myself, and they say things that they don't wholeheartedly mean. Like when I was a teenager, my mom died when I was 15. I ran away from home at 16. My dad left me in a house by myself and took my brother and sister and got remarried. I was living in a house by myself, no furniture. So said, well, what's the difference? I'll just hitch a ride to Myrtle Beach with the next friend of mine that goes. Wow. And so I lived on the boulevard for a little while and ate out of trash cans and, stolen meat from Food Lion that these two skinheads stole that I was hanging with. We were sleeping on floors. Ironically, man, I don't know how I did it. I stayed clean. I didn't do any drugs. Never was into that kind of thing. And I knew one person here, and that slowly, he helped me out, and things kind of took me to, all the way back to where we were just talking about Vegas. So I had dealt with these real suicidal, ended, nobody cares, nobody, that kind of, nobody would know probably even, like really dark thoughts.
Yeah.
And once I was getting this divorce, it got pretty heavy for me because I thought, I just had so much failure in a divorce. For me, it felt like I was letting my child down, and I wanted to be the dad I didn't have. I wanted to, my kid to have the family I didn't have, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
And not to breeze over it, but I don't want to, a lot of people have problems, So, but this was mine. And I was, the only thing that kept me hanging on was my daughter. And it was getting harder and harder because you got that nasty, darkness that just eats away inside your head, and
makes you feel like you're not being the man that you should be.
Yeah.
Sometimes
even the man that you are,
it
makes maybe you start to gaslight yourself, and you think, well, maybe I'm not really that person. Maybe I've been fooling myself all along. Maybe I'm fake. Maybe I think I'm something. Dude, it gets really bad. And then you add in that, nobody cares. Everybody leaves me. I have abandonment issues from my childhood, obviously. Everybody ever loved me left me in one way or another, whether it was, passing away or leaving. So, and therefore there was a God complex for a while because,
why are you doing this?
Why are you doing this? One person who loved me, you taking that away from me? What kind of love is that? So there was a lot, that went on in it. And the guys in the gym, man, we don't even realize it. This is what I said. We don't even realize it. But as we're in here training with each other day in, day out, you could be saving somebody. You could be adding something to someone's life. It's always said, you're someone's favorite role in the gym. Someone here, if you're not here, somebody misses you because you're their favorite role.
Yeah.
And I started feeling that. I started feeling like that was where I belonged. That was my people, my clan, my group, and without them knowing how dark things were for me, just including me in life. And Ricardo was so loving and giving, and then it spilled over into, with guys like BJ Penn and Vandalay and Rampage and Congo and these guys, I became great friends with through the sport.
Were they all training at Warrior? No,
they weren't. The guys that were training at Warrior at the time was like Forrest Griffin, Mike Pyle, Jay Haran would come over, and Couture's was still there. So the guys that were training with Mark Beecher, they would come over, and we had more. Ricardo always had a jiu-jitsu team, so to speak. But we had guys like Bustamante come in. All the Brazilian top team guys would come through with us, and anybody that was Carlson affiliated when they would have a fight.
Bustamante, people don't. Yeah, he's a Carlson guy.
Taquino came through, bro. That was pretty wild.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that was the first time, and the second time that it did the same thing for me, it brought me out, was when I started here.
Cool.
It was real. Like I told you before, I'm emotional. I said it's, I'm an emotional dude anyways.
Me too, bro.
Me too.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I'm a very emotional guy.
But I was having, I was coming out of a bad relationship, and I texted Derek like a bunch of times over Facebook. I'm like, I'm coming in, man. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to check it out. And then he's like, yeah, man, come in. And then I've been here before. Vandalay Silva used to do this to me. Invite me. Come on, man. And if you don't eventually take them up on it, they're going to stop asking. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go see what Derek's got going on, because I had trained here a little bit, and not here at Next Element. I trained in town before the Next Element existed. And I just didn't feel. I mean, you saw Ricardo. You see what I come from. Very, just good vibes, man. And not saying other places don't have good vibes, but I fit in really well here, and I like that. So, I just felt more at home here. It felt closer to what I was experiencing in Vegas. I think that's the correct way of saying what I'm thinking and feeling. Yeah. And once I did, then I started coming in, but I was still fighting that. I was going through a very nasty relationship, and it was tons of that gaslighting going on again. And my daughter was a teenager, and I was getting no love in my life from anywhere. My career was stalling. My music was good, but it wasn't picking up, and I wasn't getting any traction, and I wasn't physically fit. I was just unhealthy mentally. I was unhealthy physically, and I don't like lifting weights. I don't like that thing. So I was like, I gotta make a change. I came in here, saw some classes, took some classes, came in, I got my butt whooped. It made me really embarrassed and ashamed to represent Ricardo as a brown belt and rolling like that. That was a struggle, bro. Like, I was embarrassed, and some days I still am. I shouldn't be rolling like that. That's in my mind. I fight that. And I had to learn. That's my ego. Yeah. I didn't even understand that's my ego, because I'm like, no, ego is like you go in all bullied up and then you get humbled. Yeah. No, this was my ego talking to myself, going, "You're better than that. What are you doing?" And I started beating myself up.
That's a good ego, in my opinion.
I think so too,
it's like, even though we turn and we start beating ourselves up because of it, like, I do it to myself too, man. Like, I mean, we were like, man, like, why so-and-so got a position on me, like, how, like, or somebody got me, like, they should have never done that. Like, I used to do that when I would drive home from Kurt's, man. I'd be like, oh my God, like, how am I, fighting in Bellator? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I got Joe Blow that it's his first day, never,
right,
or something like that. So I get how you beat yourself up.
Yeah, the ego is a powerful thing, man.
It's powerful though, like, because without the ego, right? Without the ego, the Next Element wouldn't be here, right? Without the ego of me saying I'm good enough to be a teacher and to open a business and different things like that, right? Right. So your ego has brought you in a lot of different places, but it's also your enemy at the same time.
Yeah, it's how you wield it.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
I mean, I couldn't get up and sing in front of people, or MC, talk in front of people, if I didn't have security and belief in myself. Yeah. But wow, was it hard. And it still is. Yeah. But it was difficult. And the twist to it all is, and I told Ricardo this weekend, as we were going through our weekend together, I didn't want to make him look bad, even worse, even more than making myself look bad. And I know there's guys that feel like that about you. They don't. They put this weight on themselves to where that they don't want to make. I'm DK student. I don't want to make him look bad, and I think that's healthy in a lot of ways.
It is, yeah. But it holds you a sense of accountability.
Yeah, for sure. Almost. I think that's healthy in a lot of ways. I think, but sometimes if it goes unchecked and that it can get bad.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it did for me, but I'm doing a little better, man. I mean, the consistency, and accountability that I had to finally take ownership of. Yeah, that changed it. Yeah, that really did. Yeah, and even
because most of your work schedule too is though in the evening, right?
Yeah, it is, and so that limits me to. Thank goodness we have those noon classes here. I'm able to come in, and the noon classes are banging.
Yeah. I mean, we almost hit 40 on a Tuesday.
Right.
On a Tuesday at noon.
I think that's dope, you know. So like the rolls are great, and the technique is always great. You know, the instruction is great, but the vibe, you know, the vibe
that makes or break places, man.
Yeah.
Like it can be really good training,
yeah,
but like the vibe is off. You know, it's like,
and that's something that you hear anybody and everybody that come and train with us from out of town. Like a lot of times, like people, you know, they'll just say it when they're here, like, oh, the vibe's great, blah, blah. But then they turn around and they're posting about it on social media and tagging the next element. And they're going that extra mile to say, hey, you know, if you're in Myrtle Beach and you're looking for a great place to train, like, this is where you need to be. And I mean, it could, listen, people that are watching this that don't come and train here, that don't live here, whatever, they might just think we're talking it up because obviously we're here on the mats, right? But go look at the Instagram at the Next Element Academy.
You can read our Google reviews.
Read
too.
the Google reviews. Like, this is a great place to train. And
I think we have 60 or 70 Google reviews, all 5 stars.
That says a lot. And it's not just the higher belts here either. You know, there's white belts and blue belts and we're
gonna get a hater who goes, leave me a 1 star now.
But dude, it's I see what you're saying. It's a great vibe here. And one thing that I caught from like your story, and I think everybody can resonate with this, is like being vulnerable all the time is a hard thing. You know, whether you're here on the mats or you're in the entertainment business. You know, when you're on stage and you're singing every day, that is a extremely vulnerable place to be. You're opening yourself up for anybody to tell you suck.
Yeah. Especially as an artist, right? It's one thing to be a cover band and to go out and do that. Then because really, as a cover band, what you get. Listen, I'm just talking music now. What you get criticized on is, are you a good singer? Are you a good guitar player?
Can you sound like the original artist?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but whenever I play my music and I sing my stuff, and then then I'm like throwing my real life stuff out there.
Yeah.
There's a song that I put out last year called "But I Do," which I think is the best single that I've put out. Not the best song I've written, but the best single, definitely. And like didn't get any traction, and I was going, dang, like we did a cool video too, and it's so weird, you know, but I have to once again think about what was the reasoning for writing it, what was the reasoning for doing it, putting it out. It was my, you know, drive to get that out, not because I thought it was going to be a smash or something or get me to another level, but because it was inside of me needing to get out.
Yeah.
And that's really the way that I've felt about missing jiu-jitsu, is like it was inside of me, and I wasn't able to access it. And then once I finally did, I was still shaking off the cobwebs, man. It was hard for me to get out of the bed. Yeah. Like I was still depressed. I didn't want to get out of bed. Yeah. So just the fight to get here, I had to start thinking of it like this. Just the fight to get on the mat was a victory. Mm-hmm. The rolls didn't matter. Yeah. Because the victory was getting off the couch, getting out of my bed, and getting in the car, putting on the gi, coming here. That was the victory. Yeah. You know? Yeah,
and it's about finding your why. You know, I mean, just life in general. And I think that martial arts can be a huge, anybody who does it will say that, right? It's a huge role in finding your why. Like, what would you say your why is with martial arts? Because you've been doing it a long time, right?
Well, I mean, you know, it started out very, you know, self-centered.
Right.
Right? Like, when I first started out, it was like, I want to be the best fighter, right? I want to be, you know, I want to make it to the UFC and different things like that. But now my why is to give back to my students, right? Like, my why, if I don't show up, then my students stop showing up too, you know? So that's my motivation. My students, and it's seeing everybody and knowing that they are counting on me to show up, to learn technique from me, that is my why right now, you know? And so I have to become the best version of myself. I have to not only talk the talk, I have to walk the walk. I have to do all the things because, you know, we're growing, and, you know, there's a lot of eyes on me, whether it's, you know, I realize it or not. So, you know, even with this podcast, like, you know, there's still eyes on me here, and you know the stuff that I talk about and different things like that. You know, my students listen to me. They watch the podcast. People that podcast, you know, they might not listen to me at all, but you know, that's cool. But yeah, my why is just all about, you know, giving back to and making sure I'm putting out a good product. You know what I'm saying? And representing myself, the academy, you know, my family and everything to the best of my ability.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah, and that bleeds into your family too, like, because by doing all those things that you just said for your students here, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a family and it's a business. So that business is going to bleed into your personal family and make sure that, you know, Bodie's good.
Absolutely.
You know, and Megan. So yeah, it's a wow. I love that we just got deep on here, man. This is the first time that
not the way things normally go. I'm sorry.
I appreciate it, like, because somebody is watching this and they're having these same thoughts maybe that you did, or they're trying to find their why, and maybe, you know, does martial arts do it for me? Like, I haven't found my why yet, right? Like, because I haven't been doing it long enough. Like, for me, I just came here. I guess my why is self-centered, right? Yeah. Because this makes me feel better about myself, right? And maybe I don't, like you were saying, you're somebody's favorite role, right? So maybe there's people in here that I'm helping, even though I'm a white belt, that I'm helping get better. So maybe that's the underlined why that I don't really realize at this particular moment, you know? But, you know, I look forward to coming in here every day, even on the days where I just don't fucking want to be honest with you. Like, we've talked about that before. Those are days where I feel like I've learned the most. You know? But it's people like, you know, like DK, like Gary, giving me little instructions here and there. When you're watching me roll with somebody and you see, okay, well, the reason why that didn't work is because you didn't do this, you know, or this can make this better. Like, those are the times where I retain that the most, you know, more so than even just whenever you're giving instruction, you know, whenever you're doing it live and like, somebody's able to stop you or tell you right after and show you how it's supposed to be done. Like, those are the times for me when I feel like I retain the most knowledge. Yeah. And so, yeah, like that, I'm glad that you told that story, because it even helps me, like, to look at my journey that has just begun. And I guess kind of ask myself some important questions that otherwise it may have taken me years to even think about, you know? So that's very cool, man. Now I kind of want to shift gears a little bit and let's talk about, so obviously you had a big magazine. You've worked a lot with some fighters that were huge names, right? Like, most of them probably retired by now. I think.
most guys.
Right. Because I was back like,
Vanderlei Silva, Vanderlei Silva, I wanted to be Vanderlei.
Who did
man,
bro?
When I was like, dude, and then he, you know, the tattoo on the back of his head. Like, I wanted to train with shoot to box. I wanted to do everything. Like, Vanderlei was the Pride champ for 6 years, I think it was. The Pride 100 middleweight champ, I think, something like that. For like 5 or 6 years. Yeah. In Pride in Japan. And so, like, he was the man.
Those Pride rules, people think like UFC is brutal. That's
and Vanderlei got away with that because he was a savage, dude. He would just jump and stomp on people's heads, man. Like him, Shogun, Ninja, Hua.
Oh yeah,
all those dudes would just jump over everybody. These guys would be laying down on their backs, and they'd jump over them. They'd hold on to the ropes and try to stomp their head. Man,
Pride was wild.
Yeah, it was. And you were here yesterday, and you showed me that video that Chael Sonnen sent you, congratulating you on the black belt. And now we're talking about Vanderlei. All I could think of is, I can't let you get close.
Oh yeah.
What a great season, The Ultimate Fighter. But let's just talk some. So you were saying that you started boxing, right? And then you kind of got into jiu-jitsu. Tell us about the podcast that you did and how that all came about.
So I started a podcast called The Ultimate Podcast.
And what year was this?
2005.
Okay, so this is before podcasts really were
correct.
Took off.
Yeah. I got the way it happened was, and I'll try to make this quick. I got an iPod for Christmas. iPod is the reason why it's called podcasting, because it was on an iPod.
Didn't know that.
In the beginning.
Yep.
Correct. And which to me, I always tried to change it once the iPod went away and everything was available on the phone. I felt like it should be called online on-demand radio, but it's still podcasting. That's how good of branding Apple is.
Yeah.
It's still the
iPod's gone.
doesn't even exist, and we still call it podcasting.
Dude, I'm a big Apple fan.
Yeah,
I'm a
massive.
huge Apple
Right.
fan. We lost our. Sorry to cut you off. We lost our luggage this weekend. Well, we didn't. Southwest did, and it was gate checked. But Megan had put an Apple AirTag in it, and was tracking it, dude. And we're at the. So we're like, it's here. Like, you guys don't know where it is. And so we were like, it's right here at Terminal 1, blah, blah, blah. But they sent it back to Baltimore. We were in Vegas, man.
Oh, shit.
Trippy.
And we didn't get it till the next day, but we could track it. It was like, oh, it's at the airport now. We can go pick it up. They didn't even call us or nothing, tell us who's there.
Figures.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's all right.
But,
So I was looking on there. I'm like, what is this podcast thing? What is this? So I began to look, and I realized that you could find all these subjects that you like, and then listen to it, right? So I found this boxing show that I liked, and I was a part of. You remember how it used to be? You go to the underground or go to like Sure Dog, you know, and that's where MMA was surviving.
Yeah.
That's where the hardcore fans would all go and just talk about your favorite fighter or who you didn't like, and a lot of trolls there and stuff like that.
Sure.
So
MMA trolls are the worst.
they're so bad. So and I actually had some tough times with a few of them on my reviews on iTunes because they were fans of Sure Dog, and I had taken the #1 spot really quickly away from Sure Dog. It was just Sure Dog. Sure Dog was the first one. Got to give them props. And there was a jiu-jitsu podcast, and then I was listening to a Clemson football podcast, and I was like, dude, I can help this guy out. I'll send him some music for like music beds and stuff. Made his show better, and it was cool. And I was like, I think I can do better than this Sure Dog thing, because it wasn't because TJ DeSantis was bad at all. TJ knew so much more about MMA, and Josh Gross did too. They both hosted the show, but what's the word I'm looking for? Their vibe together, it was off.
Chemistry.
The chemistry was off, right? So I was like, I can do this, and I don't have to get guys on the phone. I see them in the gyms all the time. So I just did it. I knew how to edit music, songwriting stuff on Pro Tools, and then I just started. Bro, I would stand at the escalators after weigh-ins at Mandalay Bay, and after the crowd had come through, the fighters would come up the escalators, and I'd just stand there with a microphone, and I'd just walk with them and interview them, and that's how I met tons of dudes, and I was just doing the hustle, man. And that's how I met managers that way. I met Tap Out that way, Frank Mir, everybody, Tito, guys that I'm still friends with today. That's how I met them. Wow. And I did that for a long time.
Because, media was not covering much of UFC fighters except for the UFC and Spike.
Yep.
And
after my third episode, House set up a meeting with Dana, and I had a meeting with Dana after my third episode, and he's like, I want to smash Sure Dog, smash him. So he goes, Lorenzo wants me to do a podcast. He goes, but I don't have time to do it. Why don't you give me a business plan? Give me a business plan. So I was like, okay. So I went home and put this thing together, sent it to him and emailed it to him. Never heard back. And I wanted to do something that was different. I was doing this cool podcast, but what I really wanted to do was, I was watching Fuel TV at the time, and it was so much cool. Like there'd be a host, and he would be talking to like a skater or a surfer or a BMX guy, but the host, he was a skater too, or a BMX guy or a moto guy himself. So he was like an insider. Yeah, he knew the behind the scenes of everything because he was part of it, but he was hosting. So he rode the fence between fan and insider, and that's what I wanted to do with MMA and promote the fighters. UFC was already the biggest thing in the sport. They were the sport, other than Pride.
Right.
But that was in Japan.
Exactly.
But UFC quickly took over.
Yeah.
So I just kept on and kept on, and eventually it got me the media director job at Throwdown, and I started Throwdown TV and was doing all this video stuff, and I think I was the first independent video guy out there. Like before Ariel was doing his stuff, I have a funny Kungli Ariel Helwani story, but probably not the best for the podcast. But it started let's just say my relationship started off with Ariel, the way it ended, which is the way that you see most people having a relationship with Ariel Helwani.
Okay,
so
I know where you're going with that.
Right.
Yeah,
it's a very stereotypical relationship with the guy. But after Throwdown, I went to England for 2 weeks. Me, Rampage, Congo, Bisbing, Rico Rodriguez, Gerald Harris, Paul Kelly, and Lunchbox. We all lived in one house in England for 2 weeks, and they trained at Wolf Slayer, and I filmed everything. I was a white belt then.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, because I met Mario Sukata for the first time, and another great guy that I met through their old Carlson guy, but just another relationship that I carried on through there, and then started working for Fighters Only, and then worked there with them through 2012, and then headed back home to raise my daughter here.
So is that why the career dealing with MMA kind of came to an end, because you just moved home to kind of take care of family matters?
Kind of. Okay. It really was two things. Whenever the job had gotten very, was a lot of anxiety. This is how crazy it is. I was the only employee in North America. I wasn't even an employee. I was the only guy in North America that was on the team for gathering, selling ads, or gathering any interviews or pictures or anything like that. And it was still the most anxiety-filled job, because I had to get on the phone with the owner over Skype every morning, and it was like, why are you in the gym today? Why are you going to the gym today? I'm like, because that's where the fighters are, bro.
Right. Yeah.
That's what you want. You want content. I'm not going to get it in my office out on Horizon Ridge, like I gotta get it. I got an open door to Extreme Couture. I got an open door to Warrior, to Throwdown, any to Drysdale's, any gym in this country. As a matter of fact, I got it. Like that's why you hired me.
Yeah.
So I was burnt out, and then I came here, and the scene here I was coming from Vegas. I was coming from the best commission in the world.
Scene here was lacking.
Yes, it was, and
lacking is a good word.
Yeah,
that's why I came here. The scene was lacking, dude. I saw it. I was like, I need to go there. They don't have him. There's nobody there. There's nobody there that is doing it the way you should be doing it.
And it's the fastest growing sport in the world, or
yeah,
was
man.
at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it took me 2014 to move down here, but it's just like, in 2014 I saw an opportunity as well. I'm like, I'm gonna go down there and I'm gonna take over. That's literally what I said. I was typing it on Facebook and everything. I'm about to move to Myrtle Beach. I'm about to take over. I was typing it all out. I had friends that lived down here and stuff. I had people I knew, from all over South Carolina and everything too, But that I already knew that the scene down here was lacking. Yes, for sure. Yeah. And it's slowly progressing.
Oh, definitely making
it's taken a long time, but it's slowly progressing.
Even the commission is up in the game. So it is seeing improvements. Derek and I were talking the other day. I flew in from Vegas on my own dime. I wanted to be part of the first pro fights in my state, because it was illegal. It wasn't legal. It wasn't it wasn't legal here, and I wanted to be part of that. So I flew here and did post fight interviews for a few cards for them.
And that's where the two of you.
So I met. Well, I don't even know if we met or you know, Gary did my like after weigh-in interview at it was man, where were we? Where did they do that weigh-in at? It was at Broadway, somewhere in Broadway.
Was it Broadway Louis?
Yes. Yeah, it was.
Oh man.
It was Broadway Louis. Yep. Did the weigh-ins at Broadway Louis. And you did the interviews after that or whatnot. And you know, I'd heard, you know, he was with the magazine and stuff like that at the time. But yeah, that was for Carolina Fight Promotions. And I had just got back from Afghanistan. And yeah, we were talking about this the other day, and I thought I was in shape. You know, I had been in Afghanistan. Yeah, I think I was in Afghanistan. And I took this fight on a week's notice against this guy, and I'd been doing CrossFit, you know, workouts. I was really into CrossFit and stuff, you know. Not much training with, you know, top level people in Afghanistan. You know,
Right.
I just roll with military people and whatnot and sparred a little bit, and I was like, I'm gonna smash this dude. I was 5-1. This dude wouldn't tap, man. I took him down first round. I had him full mount, had him in an arm, like head and arm choke, had him in a Darce choke. It was not happening. And by the end of the round, man, I'm exhausted. Come out in the second round, and he just takes me down and just beats me up. And I'm so exhausted. I'm standing. I get out of the cage, and I'm just puking in our you know, bucket. Yeah. I'm just puking. And then the commission, you know, it was their first pro fight. We had already had state of South Carolina had just become legal, and we had already had a person die.
Yep.
You know, and so the commission, it's not who they were now. These were these old dudes. All they knew was boxing, really, and they're like, get him to the hospital. He needs to go now. Where, dude? Stretcher and everything, man. No. They put me on this stretcher. I'm exhausted at times. I was just like, okay, you put me in a stretcher. And so, and we were talking about this because they wheeled me out as Nissen, I think, is coming down
the ramp.
The ramp, you know. They're calling out the main event.
Yep.
And he's coming down the ramp, and they're wheeling me out right beside him. And he's like walking out. He's like, oh, man, you know, and there I go.
That was one of the wildest things I've ever, as many fights as I've ever been involved in, like covered or been, you know, commentated. That was one of the wildest things I've ever seen. I've never forgotten it. However, until the other day, I didn't know that it was Derek.
It's not a good look, you know what I'm saying?
You're talking about a small world, right? Yeah. Now like I come in here now, like I'm actually learning from this guy, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm like wow, like who would have thought that I would have come home to call one of his fights, you know, do an interview with him, and you know, after post weigh-ins. And
yeah, I didn't make it post fight. I was gone. I was gone to Grand Strand at that point in time. And then you end up, you know, coming full circle and end up training, you know, it's wild,
in the gym here. It's just so awesome, man.
So I guess the question remains, right? Like, even though it came to an end and you moved back home, like it had to have been a successful venture for you, meeting those people and building those relationships. So why not dabble in it today? I mean, because obviously there's money to be made on YouTube, you know, with views and clicks and everything else. Has that ever crossed your mind?
Well, I think, you know, step at a time. The baby steps have you know, been coming along, and I've talked to a few guys about starting a show. You know, Frank Mir and I had talked about it before. There's another guy named Elliot Chester, who he and I have talked about a project or two, but it's Vegas based, you know, and it's like it's not here. And then there's some management opportunities that have kind of been presented to me. I don't know if I would go back into media, but I don't know, man. It has been, the itch is there, and what I'm trying to do is train more again and get. Because I was burned out, bro. Like, not with training. I was burned out with, you know, the fight promotions that I was having to work with and work for.
Oh, because there's super nice people in this industry. But there's also some super shitty ones.
Oh yeah. I imagine it's a lot like the music business, right?
There's so many similarities and so many parallels. It's crazy. So that's why I have such insight to what real fighters go through. You know, I mean, I've cut weight. I mean, the most I've ever cut was 12 pounds. Not what, you know, these big time guys are doing, not what real guys are doing, you know, but I've done it. I know what it's like to be punched in the face. I have a deviated septum by Joey Varner at Extreme Couture. So like I was, you know, I mean, I just got my black belt. I know some things about jiu-jitsu. You know, I'm not like the other journalists. Because some of them are real journalists, some of them are fanboys. It's really prevalent in boxing right now. There's a lot of dudes with their iPhone and who are fans that don't really understand. They don't really know the sport or the business of the sport. They don't know what the fighter goes through. I was very lucky. I was able to see guys cutting weight. I was taking pictures of. I've got pictures and video. Joe Stevenson before he fought Spencer Fisher, and I've got all of we just did the whole cut. Like I was with him through the whole cut. You know,
he cut a lot too.
Yeah,
old Joe Daddy.
Yeah,
and he's a big weight cutter.
He just no big deal. Like
he'd walk around like 180 something, bro.
Probably. Even
I remember that the second season of The Ultimate Fighter he was on, which wasn't too long ago, really, a couple years. Like you could tell, man. Like the guy carried a lot of weight.
Oh, for sure. And remember he did that thing. They had that competition where they did the deal where they crawl like.
And he did like 100 rounds around that dude.
Bro, bonkers, man, bonkers. I can't even do a pull up.
Jesus,
bless you. I can't even do a pull up, and this guy's like monkey crawling on the dude.
Monkey crawling all over that guy, man. Just making it like just crushing him.
But that was awesome though, because like with Joe, I was. Two stories about Joe real quick is that Derek's gonna ruin all your gear, man. Joe is an awesome dude. Yeah. Joe, one of the stories, Joe said, "Hey, why don't you come up to Big Bear? I'm training, got a camp going on." That was the first time I met Rampage and those guys as well. Because they had the same gym, small little gym in Big Bear, but they would flip it. Like Joe would have it at this time, and then his shift would be out. Quentin's crew would come in,
right? Yeah,
and that's where I met Gerald Harris and Bisbing, I think, for the first time. But Joe, I was up there with Cub Swanson and a few other guys like that became household names, you know. Yep. And I just had a great experience with Joe. Joe was an awesome guy. The other story with Joe is it was a Grappler's Quest or Naga or something like that. And Joe was under, I think he was under Drysdale at the time, and one of their students was what we were opponents in this tournament. So I'm looking for Ricardo. And at these tournaments, as you well know, especially the big ones, there's mats, all like huge mats, and there's tons of fights going on.